بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا زدنا علما يا كريم. Inshallah, we're going to start our class. Yeah, if you can go to the channel and also share on just type in on YouTube Ahmad Saleem, and then share it on the group. You know the group that we had? Our group. No, WhatsApp group. Okay. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, folks on Instagram, inshallah. We're going to start in a couple of minutes. We're just setting up something. And for those of you that are here, if you want to see it in high definition, we're also streaming live. So the YouTube link is, I believe, in my bio, so you can go and watch it live there too on YouTube, inshallah. So we're live on YouTube, inshallah. All right, Bismillah. We want to first start off by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also thanking the brother who actually donated all this equipment. One of the brothers over here just decided to, he said, I believe in streaming, I believe in live streaming. I'm like, it's too complicated. He's like, we'll buy you the best equipment. So may Allah bless him. If he's listening, you know who you are. He's not able to be with us because he has family commitments, but he wanted to listen to it from home. So he said, well, I'll make it beneficial for everybody. So may Allah bless him for all that he did, and everything, so that, it's now just one cable to the laptop and you can stream, as opposed to other things. So, alhamdulillah. May Allah bless him and his family, and may Allah preserve the iman of the brother, inshallah. We're going to start with, inshallah, verse number 16, as is our, we start off with a couple of verses before, so we can create the sequence. This gives time to people that are still trickling in and stuff, so they don't miss the main session, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ مِرْفَقًا وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَهْفِهِمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَإِذَا غَرَبَتْ تَقْرِضُهُمْ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ فَهُمْ فِي فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْهُ وهم في فجوة منه ذلك من آيات الله من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وتحسبهم أيقاظا وهم رقود ونقلبهم ذات اليمين وذات الشمال وكلبهم باسط ذراعيه بالوصيد لو اطلعت عليهم لوليت منهم فرارا ولملئت منهم رعبا وكذلك بعثناهم ليتساءلوا بينهم قال قائل منهم كم لبثتم قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم قالوا ربكم أعلم بما لبثتم فابعثوا أحدكم بورقكم هذه إلى المدينة فلينظر أيها أزكى طعاما فليأتكم برزق منه وليتلطف ولا يشعرن بكم أحدا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He starts off in these verses. He says, وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ. And we have talked about these verses in detail last time, so we're just going to do a running translation so we understand. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when إِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ, remember the time when they, i.e. the people, the 7 people, اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ, when they distanced themselves, وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, with that which they used to worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ, so seek refuge in the cave. يَنْشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to provide for you, accommodate for you, رَبُّكُمْ, your Rabb, مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ, from His mercy. وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُمْ, and Allah will prepare for you, مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ, from your affairs, مِرْفَقًا, an accommodation. So this is when they ran away from their family and they're having this conversation within themselves. Okay? Now, the ulama, they have described many benefits of seclusion. So what they did is they secluded themselves, right? And the ulama, they have described numerous benefits of seclusion, right? One of the benefits that the ulama, they say, is that it provides a very strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when a person secludes themselves from everybody else, then you have nobody else to look forward to other than yourself. You're left with yourself. So ultimately you have a choice, and now you can get connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Quran and through dhikr. The second benefit is avoidance from sin. When you are secluded, you're less prone to fall under sin. You're less, who are you going to, like you need, nowadays, when we say seclusion, it's also from your cell phone. Right? It's like, yeah, I'm secluded, but I've got my laptop and my cell phone. We have a lot of such seclusions where people are secluded in their rooms, but they're secluded in their rooms with their cell phones, they're secluded with their rooms with their laptops. That type of seclusion doesn't help. Okay? It's seclusion where you don't have any connection with anyone and you're forced to work with yourself. There was a person by the name of Ahmad al-Shigeri. And he's a guy who used to have a very famous television show in Saudi for the longest period. Khawatir, yes. Ahmad al-Shigeri, he used to have Khawatir. So after being on television for so long, that industry does something to you, right? And he called these kalakir. You develop internal knots of understanding. It's all in your emotions. And so what he did, he secluded himself for 40 days in an island where he went, found a house, rented it for 40 days. And the only thing he took with him was the Quran and 40 books to read. So he had the Mus'haf and he took 40 books to read. And he told his family and his wife and children that, listen, unless it's my parents that are dying, you don't call me. Like if my mom or dad are dying or you're dying, then call. Right? And there was only one cell phone that he took, which was hidden. So it was there, but it was like Abu Kashaf, the small ones that it's like a small one, you can hardly even see the screen. And that phone was there, and that's it. That was only there for emergency purposes. So after 40 days, it's a beautiful interview that he talks about. And he said, you actually realize that you, around the first day, second day, the third day, you start hating yourself. Because you don't even recognize how bad you have become with the environment. You don't have any cognitive reality of who you are. And he said around the fifth day or sixth day, you start actually figuring out, okay, I need to do something with my life. And he's like, around the 10th day, you actually start developing love, because now Quran is actually talking to you. Because before, it was all these shackles of society and burdens, everything is bothering you. And he said, around the 40th day, you almost don't want to go back. So he wrote an entire book on that, his journey of these 40 days, and he called it Arba'in, or Arba'un, of Ahmad Shageri. Right? I think they've also translated it in English. And it's about each day and his reflections on each one of those days. So the ulama, they have, list can go on of the benefits, but first benefit is strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the forms of zikr and Quran. Second benefit is that, you stay away from sins like ghiba, riya, right? Imam al-Khattabi used to say, if the only benefit of uzla, seclusion, was that you could protect yourself from riya, that's enough of a benefit. Like if seclusion had no other benefit except that you could protect yourself from riya, then that in itself is enough of a benefit. Then the third is protection from fitna. Remember the hadith of Prophet ﷺ when he said, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ مَرِجَتْ عُهُودُهُم, that when you see people and you see that their affairs have become jungled up, mixed up. مَرِجَتْ عُهُودُهُم, that, good and bad, everything. Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? وَكَانُوا هَكَذَا. So he took his fingers and he said, good and bad. And he did his fingers like that. Right? وَشَبَكَ بَيْنَ أَنَامِلِهِ. Then he says, when this happens, when good, bad, it's all mixed up, فَالْزَمْ بَيْتِكَ, then stay in your home. When that level of fitna, we're living in that level of fitna. فَالْزِمْ بَيْتَكَ وَامْلِكْ أو وَأَمْلِكْ عَلَى لِسَانِكَ. And the first thing we have to be careful about is our tongue. In the matters, in the times of fitna. And today what happens with our tongue? That's the least thing that we're careful about. And now the tongue, we have, by tongue, that vis-a-vis tongue, we have the extension of commenting, we have the extension of messaging, we have the extension, we don't even have any idea what we chatted with, who we spoke to, what we wrote 2 days ago. That's all lisanic. It's in that same category, that whatever you wrote, whatever you spoke, it doesn't have to be physically coming out. It's also your text fingers. فَالْزِمْ بَيْتَكَ وَأَمْلِكْ عَلَيْكَ لِسَانَكَ وَخُذْ مَا تَعْرِفْ. Stay with the knowns. What's obvious and knowns, just stick to that. Anything that is new, any ism that is new, or there's a new way of doing things. My Shaykh used to say, جَدِيدُ الْإِسْلَامِ قَدِيمٌ وَقَدِيمُهُ جَدِيدٌ. The new things in Islam are actually old. They're irrelevant. And the old things are actually the new things. They are the more fresh things. Because Islam has a heritage, it has a lineage, it has a sanad through which we get our religion from. It's not just haphazard. So he says, وَدَعْ مَا تُنْكِرْ. And if you say something and you look at it, you're like, wait, this doesn't seem right to me. This doesn't settle well with me. Right? Then he says, وَدَعْ مَا تُنْكِرْ. Right? This is in matters of new affairs, right? Like if it's like a new thing, you don't know if this new idea, this new way, like anything that is new, be very careful about that. Then he says, وَعَلَيْكَ, in one narration, وَعَلَيْكَ بِخَاصَّةِ أَمْرِكَ. In another narration, Prophet ﷺ said, وَعَلَيْكَ بِخُوَيْصَةِ أَمْرِكَ. And stick to your personal affairs. Things that bother you, stick to them. وَدَعْ عَنْكَ أَمْرِ الْعَامِ. And public affairs, forget about them. Just leave it. Don't get involved in that. So that's just one hadith out of the numerous ahadiths about fitna. Okay. The third is protection from the evil eye of people, evil's eye of people such as hasad, ayn, all of that. You will be protected from that. Okay. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the next ayah, وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَهْفِهِمْ. And if you were to look at the shams, we've done the detailed description about it last week. I believe you have uploaded the video, right? You have uploaded the video, perfect. So the video for last week, if you missed it, do go and check it out, because we did we did the grammatical analysis, but more importantly, we did the word analysis of it, and then we talked about what this ayah is actually talking about from scientific worldview. Okay. وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَهْفِهِمْ. And if you were to look at the sun when it rose, inclining away from their cave to the right. وَإِذَا غَرَبَتْ تَقْرِضُهُمْ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. And when it was set, as it set, declining away from the left. وَهُمْ فِي فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْ. And they were in a gap in its open space, i.e. the gap between the light or the gap between the sun. Gap between the cave. ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. These are the ayat or the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَنْ يَهْدِ اللَّهِ. Whosoever Allah guides, فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدِ. He is truly guided. وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ فَلَنْ تَجِدَ لَهُ وَلِيًّا مُرْشِدًا. And whosoever Allah decides to lead astray, then you're not going to find anybody that could guide that person. Okay. What is the significance of the ending of this ayah over here? The significance of the ending is for us that like this sign, Allah is going to show us signs. You're going to have tons and tons of signs all throughout that are going to be ajaib, that are going to be strange. And it's only the ones that have iman will be able to witness those signs, and they will be able to come back from them. Imam As-Suyuti, very famous scholar, Jalalain and all of these books that are being written, from 600, 500, 600. Imam As-Suyuti, he says something so powerful. In the book of Khasa'is of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Imam As-Suyuti says that there used to be a handkerchief, like a rumal, right, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to wipe his sweat with. Okay. And it was with some person in his town. That person's entire house got burned down, except the rumal of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? With that, so many people accepted Islam. Like this is what Imam Suyuti is saying, that so these are called khasa'is, but these are also called ajaib. These are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows. So when this whole thing about Surah Ashab al-Kahf, their sun declining away, all of that, ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. These are signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whosoever Allah wishes, they will see these signs and they will say, I believe. And others are going to be like, oh, please don't tell us these folklores. Right? وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ. And if somebody listens to these stories and they say, you know what, ye kya baat hai? We're like, what is this nonsense? A'udhu billah. If they say that, تِلْكَ أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ, Allah says, there are going to be people towards the end, ye purani stories, what are these old stories you're telling me? Fable legends of the past? I don't want to believe in that. Right? So then over here Allah is like, وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ فَلَنْ تَجِدَ لَهُ وَلِيًّا مُرْشِدًا. Right? In one of my travels, I met an individual who happened to momentarily leave this earth, like he died medically. Medically, he passed away. And they stopped. Generally, you should resuscitate them in a certain number of times, certain minutes, but those minutes had passed. But these doctors, they really liked this person, though they went beyond the call. And they gave up on him. And when he died, he could not he could not speak or understand Arabic. But before dying, he made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I would like to learn Arabic. When he woke up after 20 minutes of everything stopped and his heart just started back, he was fluent in Arabic. And I met this person. He was not from an even Arab country. He doesn't have any Arab parents. He didn't even live with Muslims. He just accepted Islam in the hospital. And the doctor was like, one day he just like resuscitated and he just started speaking Arabic and he forgot English. And I met that person. ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. Allah shows us signs. And when we see these signs, مَنْ يَهْدِ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدِ. Whosoever Allah guides, through these signs they will be guided. وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ وَلَنْ تَجِدْ وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ. But if Allah chooses to lead you astray from that, فَلَنْ تَجِدْ لَهُ وَلِيًّا مُرْشِدًا. You're not going to find a guiding mentor for that person. Now, we didn't do this ayah, right? وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ. If you were to enter the cave, now the scene switches. Allah is like, if you are in the cave, you would see the sun rise and set, and the sun would deviate to the right, to the left. That's a miracle. We talked about it in detail in the last week. This one, Allah says, وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا. If you were to look at them, right, you would believe that they are awake. Ayqaz, they are awake. وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. The sun also turned away, ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. The sun also did the same, ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. So Allah is like, we were turning them towards the direction of the sun, ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. We kept turning them left and right. Okay? And then Allah says, وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ. And as for their dog, these paws, they were sitting right in the front like that, and he was sitting in upright position. And wasid is the entrance of the cave. لو اطلعت عليهم, if you were to look at them, لوليت منهم فرارا ولملئت منهم رعبا. And if you were to look at these people in the cave the way they were, it was so terrifying of a sight that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لوليت منهم فرارا. When do you run away from something? When you accidentally look and there's like a black bear behind you. Okay? Right? We went camping in the summer, and they put me in a cabin, and the day before they said, we have captured a bear, so don't worry, there won't be any more. I said, Habibi, this is a jungle, okay? You captured one, now you're telling me that I need to walk all this jungle to go to the bathroom. So anyhow, at 3:30 I was like, I need to go. So I went, took the torch, and I'm in the bathroom and I'm lying down. So now I'm too scared to go back. And I'm like, 2 hours till Fajr. The bathroom had a medical unit, infirmary. So I just went in that, and they had a bed. So I was like, perfect. I'm just going to lie down here, and inshallah, Allah will take care of me. Okay. In the morning, what was the guy's name? Mike or Dave? Mike. Mike comes, and he said, we had a bear sighting. I said, where was the bear? So imagine this is the infirmary, and then the bed is like this, and then so there's a cabinet bed, and then there's this door that goes to the jungle, and there's a door that comes from the bathroom inside to the infirmary. The door is the emergency exit. So if there's emergency, you open, and the crash door opens. Okay? So he's like, the bear was right at the emergency exit, smelling something. I'm like, it was me. I was sleeping there the whole night, so he could smell, but he couldn't get in. I was so afraid after he told me. Before, I had no idea that the bear was there. Right? I had no idea. And subhanAllah, imagine if I had seen that bear. Even if I knew that there was a danger for me, I would have still, وَلَا مُلِئْتَ مِنْهُمْ رُعْبًا. I heard this story after it happened to me, and I was like, next day not going to the bathroom. Right? I'm like, I'll go at 11 o'clock, and then I said, khalas, I will hold it until Fajr. When everybody wakes up, because when there's too many people, then they run away. So Allah is saying that if you were to look at them, this is my state after somebody tells me the story that there was an incident. They're saying if you look at them, you will be so filled with fear that that fear is going to force you won't have instinct. Your instinct will take over you and you will run away. Firaran. So there was some danger that was coming to you. You only, farra yafirru is actually when you run away from some imminent fear and danger to yourself. وَلَمُلِئْتَ مِنْهُمْ رُعْبًا. And this scene would have filled your inside with horror. Now, if you understand this entire ayah, what state were they in? Question for everyone. Have you ever been afraid of someone this much when they were sleeping? And Allah is like, وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ what? أَيْقَاظ, which is the opposite of sleeping. Okay? And then Allah says, Allah does not say وَهُمْ نَائِمٌ وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ. The word ruqud is it's a little bit of a different thing. And it's very, very interesting because once you make this connection from the Quran, this ayah will make a lot of sense to you. Where does this word come again in the Quran? مَنْ بَعَثَنَا مِن مَرْقَدِنَا. Who woke us up from our marqad? When the marqad was where? Who woke us up after when the qiyamah is going to come? They're like, who woke us up from this resting place of ours? Were they alive or dead in the grave? Alive. They had a life. They were physically here. Like the bodies, dead bodies are physically in this world. But spiritually they're where? Somewhere else. Alamul arwah. Okay? Spiritually they're here. Sorry, physically they're here, but their spirits and spiritually they're gone somewhere else. So what Allah is using this word, تَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا, if you would look at them, you would look like they're fully awake, but their spirits were not there. Their physical bodies were intact, but they were ruqud. Their spirits had gone. They were somewhere else. Bodies are still in a state of living. Now, in what state would you be afraid of them? What state you're more prone to be afraid of them? Lying, sitting, or standing? Standing. Standing. Nice. But just any standing is not going to be afraid. You're not going to be afraid of somebody standing. Okay? Now, if they're standing, and then Allah is like, وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. If they're standing, and they are moving left to right, left to right, all of them in sync, moving left. All of them in sync, moving left, right, left, right. Now you're like, look at them, and they're literally like robots. Their bodies are وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. They're moving left, right, left, right. If you were to see that scene, they're all standing, they're awake, they're you calling them, because what this tells you, that wahum ruqud, if you were to even have called them, right? Ruqud, their soul had left. They were like somebody min marqadina, somebody who was like a dead person. Physically here, right? But dead. But the spirit still exists and feels. وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَصِيِّ. What's really interesting over here is that their dog, the state of the dog, Allah is saying, sometimes we understood, a lot of the mufassirun, they understood this. They said the dog is the source of terror. This is in the tafsir, because they could not put the terror with the people. So they said the dog is the source of terror. And like, for example, Dr. Ahmad, he said, because it must have been like, a Rottweiler or some like really ferocious dog. Again, that's his tafsir. We don't have any hadith from Rasulullah that tells us what's the nature of that dog. But then I spoke to enough people that own dogs, and then we had that dog trainer in front of our house. I spoke to her about this ayah. And she says, this is known amongst the dog training world, that when the dog submits and he's harmless to you, the paws are in the front and they're sitting like this. Like, come on, give me a treat. So the state of, so Allah is saying, the mu'jiza in the ayah is that their dog was not in a state of terror. Like you would have been filled with terror by looking at them, and their dog was right at the entrance and he was not in a state of terror. He was sitting in a very passive, submissive state. So your fear was directly from them. Okay? وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعِهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ لَوْ اطَّلَعْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ لَوَلَّيْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِرَارًا. If you would have looked at them, you would have seen the state, you would have just ran away. لَوَلَّيْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِرَارًا وَلَا مُلِئْتَ مِنْهُمْ رُعْبًا. And your heart would have been filled with terror by looking at this state of theirs. Now, did they own a dog? Was it their dog? Beautiful. It followed them. All the Mufassirun, they say that as they were going, so the dog followed them. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the dog. Right? And in this ayah itself, in this surah, 6 times. 6 times in this story it is mentioned. In every single time, the dog is attributed to them. Kalbuhum, 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 kalbuhum. Their dog, their dog, their dog, their dog. And the ulama, they took out a really beautiful point over here. This is from one of the tafsirs that I read. And they said that when the dog, which according to the fiqh is not a very pure animal, but when the dog, one of the most najis animals for our fiqh, when that dog allowed itself to be in the company of pious people, then that dog became worthy of being mentioned in the Quran because of that company. And in the Quran, that dog is mentioned 6 times because of the company, the suhbah that he had. And the opposite. What other animals, people's animal do we know? Like people that were attributed to an animal. Huh? No, a group of nation, there were group of nation, and Allah says, the people of this animal. Ashabul fil. Ashabul fil. In that story, the Mufassir says, in that story, the people got attributed to the animal because the animal had more foresight about the Kaaba than the people. So Allah attributed the insan to an animal. That your worthiness was because the animal was much more pious than all of you people. Right? You remember the story, right? When he saw, when they took the camel at the time of Rasulullah's, the year of Rasulullah's birth, with the person by name of Abraha, and Abraha was there. What was the camel's name? Who knows? Elephant? MashaAllah. Camel's name was elephant. What was the elephant's name? Sorry. What was the elephant's name? Mahmud. Mahmud was the elephant's name. Mahmud, a person came running and spoke in the ear of the elephant. And what did he say? Mahmud, hada baytullah ubruk. Mahmud, this is the house of Allah. Stop. So the elephant stopped. No matter, they brought Sa'isul Fil, they brought the person who manages, who's able to control the elephant. They brought another one, another one, another one, another one. He wouldn't move. Here's something that you may have not ever heard in tafsir books that is also mentioned. Who else was there in Makkah at that time? Huh? He was not born yet. He was in the belly of Amina radiallahu anha. So some people, they say, in tafsir books, they say that Mahmud, he saw that there is a light, a divine light of Prophet Muhammad there. Right? Al-Alusi and some of these Mufassirun, they will say that the second thing was that he saw there is something there. The mother was pregnant, because he was born in that same year. Right? Abdullah had already died. The father was already. So, and these are matters of sight. As the ulama, they say, some see and some cannot see. Some can see all the way to the Kaaba. An animal, Allah can give the foresight to be able to see these things. But an insan will be deprived. Right? May Allah never make us like the animals, but give us the foresight. So, وَكَلْبُهُمْ, their dog, بَاسِتٌ ذِرَائِهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ. We've done this whole ayah, but that was a point that... وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَكَذَلِكَ, this is something important to us to understand. And like this. And so, whenever Allah uses the word كَذَلِكَ, it is an indication. Like the way we protected them in the cave. And then we saved them from the rays of the sun. And we made the sun deviate to the left and to the right. And then we allowed them to be in the cave. We made them awake while sleeping. Looking like, their souls were gone. You would look at them, they would be awake. And then we were rotating them left and right. All of this that we did, وَكَذَلِكَ. And likewise, we did all of that. We also woke them up. بَعَثْنَا. We resurrected them. We brought... Now, when do we use the word ba'ath? Generally in the Quran. وَالْبَعْثِ بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ. This also is the indication for the ruqud. That their ruh had left. وَبَعَثْنَاهُمْ. Then their ruh came back. It was like a mini resurrection for them. وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. So right away we know that there was a dispute. They started arguing with one another. How long did we sleep? لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. They started talking to one another and asking one another. لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. So they might question one another. قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ. One of them said, كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ. How long did we stay? So, قَالَ, how many? I want you guys to also do this. Sometimes grammar can tell you the number. So think. قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ. How many? Who said? One person said. Beautiful. قَائِل. One person. قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم. A group of them said, we stayed in this day, in this cave. لبثنا, we stayed يوما, part of a day. أو بعض يوم, a day or part of a day. قالوا, another group said, ربكم أعلم بما لبثتم. Allah really knows how long we stayed here. فَبَعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرِقِكُمْ هَذِهِ إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ. So one of you should send one of you from amongst us with this wariq. Yes.
Surah Kahf also says to the person that was passing the qaryah, and he said, and then after Allah took his soul,
Yeah.
he said, قَالَ كَمْ لَبِثْتَ.
لبست بل لبست.
قال لبثت يوما أو بعض يوم. قال بل لبثت
100 عام. Yes, that was Uzair radiallahu anhu. Yes. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over here, it's the first part. How do we know there are 7? Some of the mufassirun, they said, قائل, 1 person. قالوا, 3. قالوا, the next قالوا, 3. That's 7. Okay? Make sense? قائل, 1 person. قالوا, minimum plural is 3. The next قالوا, minimum plural is 3. That's 7. So that's another indication that some people said that you can get from this word that, this is qalu. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to them, then one of them said, one of you send biwariqikum, with this silver coin. I'm not going to go into this the whole currency and all of that. That's a very long discussion. But there's a bigger discussion to have. Biwariqikum hadihi, one of you go and take this coin of yours, silver coin. Wariq was actually silver coin, right? And in general, wariq was wariq comes from wariq of the shajar, of the trees. How many leaves do we have? Lots. So when somebody would have wariq, it was an indication, it was an ibra, or it was basically a kinaya that they would use. It was sort of like a subliminal message that we have a lot of money, use some of the money from the lot of money we have to go and buy some other food. So that also tells you that they were quite rich people. They had a lot of money at that time. Malun kathir. Okay? Then what do they ask for? فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى طَعَامٍ. So one of you should go and check and look for the purest of food. أَزْكَى طَعَامٍ. Okay? What's أَزْكَى طَعَامٍ? Mufassirun, they have lots and lots of discussion on this. But I think it's important that we have this discussion. So, and again, as we said, the purpose of this tafsir is we are going to go whatever a topic opens up, we will elaborate, we will cover it in ample understanding so we have a greater understanding of this topic. So, in terms of the opinions that the people said, the mufassirun that have said about azka ta'am, I'll mention those first. Halal food. Azka ta'am, they used to consider a halal trader, buying from a Muslim trader. Okay, very particular they were about that. Azka ta'am was also the highest quality of food. Okay, azka ta'am, a food that is not exuberant in its quantity, i.e. a good amount of quantity but not very exuberant. Azka ta'am is food that is tasty. All of these tafsirs are there in our tafsir books. Okay, different tafsirs, but these are the 6. And I believe there's one that was ta'amun rakhis, something that is cheap, like with all these qualities, and it's also not very expensive. You're not spending a lot of money on that. Now, azka ta'am, specifically for halal, and this is a discussion that comes up all the time. The summary of the discussion on halal meat, non-halal meat, halal meat, all of that. Okay, and again, I'll present all sides so you understand where everybody's coming from. That's the purpose. And you choose whatever you want. First and foremost, the ulama, they are in absolute consensus on that the animal has to be halal. You cannot say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar on a pig and eat it. Okay? One of my shaykhs, he was saying that, he was visiting, I believe it was Portugal or Spain. And as he was visiting that country, the person, he wanted to bring in Muslim customers. So he put up a sign and he said, halal meat. So the shaykh went in there and he was selling pork. He said, halal chicken, halal turkey, halal pork. Right? So you know right away that this person is just doing it for the sake of money. So first and foremost, the unanimous consensus of the people is that the food has to be, the animal that we eat has to be halal. There is no dispute in any of the fuqaha on that. The second, that the person, the dhabih, the one who slaughters, the one who does the act of slaughtering, that person has to be either a Muslim, Jew, or a Christian. Ahl Kitab. Okay? There is again, if anybody comes across, there is an opinion that there's a third category that are also part of Ahl Kitab. Okay? Al-Majus. The Zoroastrians are also entered in Ahl Kitab according to some scholars. That's there in our tafsir books. Okay? But again, majority is these 3. We don't have Zoroastrians anyways. So, number 1, the animal has to be halal. Number 2, the dhabih. So first is the dhabiha. What are you slaughtering? The dhabih, the one who is slaughtering, the act of, that person has to be either Jew, Christian, or a Muslim. Jamil, what do you think is the third condition? Come on, man, you guys have all done dhabiha so many times. Halal, no. Halal money, haram money doesn't make the animal halal or haram. That's the last.
It should be alive.
It should be alive, yes. Yeah. Iraqatud dam. Blood must gush out of that animal. Okay? Iraqatud dam. Blood must gush out of the animal. Does it have to be a knife? No. Right? It has to be any type of a wound on that animal that could create the effect of gushing blood. For example, a person, he shoots an arrow and he was able to shoot an arrow towards the chest. Look at how we slaughter, for example, a camel, right? We don't do this, we just do nahar. Like we poke it in the right area where enough blood gushes out, and then the animal dies. We don't say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, because by the time you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar on the camel, it will say Bismillah Allahu Akbar on you, right? You will be gone, right? It won't let you. The same thing for llama, the same thing for ostriches and stuff. It's quite hard with those bigger animals. So, number one, the dhabiha, the animal has to be halal. Number two, the one who is carrying out the act of slaughter, that person has to be from the Ahlul Kitab or Muslim. Number three, there has to be blood that must flow. Okay? Why is this important? Because nowadays, as I was also reading the fatwa of Azhar, nowadays they have come up with a new way of slaughter, in which they slaughter not like this, but they slaughter like this. So there's a machine and the animal goes and the blade cuts the animal straight like this, splits the head up. And the reason they do that is because it's more cleaner and less blood comes out and the animal dies. As per FDA, the animal can be killed. So while the animal is alive, they start splitting the head of the animal until the brain, and then eventually when it gets to that area, then they're like, okay, the animal's now dead, and then eventually no blood comes out, or very nominal blood comes out. Okay, so instead of horizontal killing, now they do vertical killing. Okay, so animal could be standing and the blade will come from the top and will split the head in half. Okay, so iraqatud dam is important. Number four, the blade, this is where it's important for Muslims, must come from the bottom. 90% or almost 85%. Ali Jum'ah, he's the mufti, he used to be the previous mufti and stuff, a scholar from Egypt. He says he did ahsa'i, he went and did the research, and he found that almost 80 or 85% of the slaughterhouses, they cut from the top. They don't slaughter if the animal, so if the goat is there, the goat comes in a clasp, and they will start cutting from the top. So they just want to chop the head off. Even if that happens, the blood flow does happen, but the blade didn't start from the bottom. So the blade has to start from the bottom. Okay? The position of the blade is important. The next condition is where there is ikhtilaf. So up till now, we are all in unanimous. All four schools of thought, even the Zahiri or the Salafi school of thought, they all agree to this. Where there is ikhtilaf is whether saying Bismillah is required or not. Okay? The Shafi'is, those of you that are from Kerala, you're lucky, right? Or Sri Lanka. The Shafi'is do not require Bismillah. They say that condition is already fulfilled by selecting a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian. And their God is the same God, so that is condition. And all the ahadith that talk about you must say Allah's name on the animal, all of those are high recommendations, and they are not requirement or mandates. Whereas all the other schools of thought, the Hanafis, the Malikis, the Hanbalis, as well as the Zahiris, they all say that it is a mandatory requirement. Mandatory requirement. That is one issue that there is ikhtilaf on. The second issue the ikhtilaf is on is whether the Bismillah Allahu Akbar is on the animal or on the blade. So do I, at the time of my slaughtering, I say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and I can slaughter with that, according to one opinion, I can slaughter as many animals as I want because I've said Bismillah Allahu Akbar at the time of grabbing the knife. And that's where hand slaughter and machine slaughter issue is coming. Because the ones who say, one Bismillah, Allahu Akbar is enough for me to slaughter 10, like, so there's 10 goats. I say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar on the blade, and I go 1, 2, 3. I've said Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. The act is continuous, so I've killed 10, no problem. So that's where the scholars, they say, machine slaughter, if the person says Bismillah, Allahu Akbar on the button, that blade is now, as long as somebody doesn't stop that blade has Bismillah, Allahu Akbar on it. Okay? And the others, they said, no, it has to be Bismillah, Allahu Akbar on every single animal. So Bismillah, Allahu Akbar 1, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar 2, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar 3, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar 4, and every single animal there must be Bismillah, Allah. Okay? And that's where all of these differences are coming from. There is a third element to this, which is that at the time of slaughter, the animal must be alive. Okay? And that's where also the machine and hand slaughter is coming into, because there's 2 to 3% of the animals that may not make it alive after the process. So if they were electrocuted or they were so now what they're doing is they no longer electrocute them in water. So the chickens, they're basically dipped in water while they're alive, and they're given a shock of 1 second. So that zaps their brain and then numbs them for a second, puts them in a shock. So they become like very calm then. And then you can slaughter them. Okay? It doesn't kill them. Now what they're doing, which I personally saw in a slaughterhouse myself with my own eyes, because I went to inspect it, is they put them through a chamber where in each chamber the percentage of oxygen drops. So it goes from 100%, next chamber 90%, they bring them to the next chamber 80%. So CO2, so the CO2 and oxygen levels, they oscillate. So they go from 80 to 70% carbon dioxide, 30% oxygen, and those people, they actually go into sleep. Kind of like when you choke somebody and you put them on a sleeper hold, right? You choke this oxygen supply to the brain and they faint. So similarly, they do that through the process of a chamber. The bird is not shocked, but it's fully alive. And they have people who are trained in holding the bird. If the bird is dead, then it's like its wings are gonna like flap out. It's got nothing. But if it's still alive, it'll still have the wings intact. So there are people who are trained that are putting that chicken on the rail, and they remove all the dead chicken as they're coming. So that whole debate. Now, personally, this debate is just over-exaggerated by certain group of people. I don't want to take names, but there's a certain group of individuals, and obviously they have their scholars they follow, but they're very because they're predominantly Desis, and those Desi scholars are promoting this particular understanding. Again, if they want to follow that, no problem. What is not right is, for example, when we went to somebody's house and that brother refused to eat your Muslim brother's chicken because you don't know if it is hand slaughtered or not, that act is haram. That's my problem, right? That when a brother serves you, the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, where Prophet ﷺ, in Bukhari, the hadith is what? The Sahabas, they came, he said, Yo Rasulullah, we have some new Muslim brothers, we don't know if they really know how to slaughter or not. They're just new, they're figuring things out. Should we eat their food? So Rasulullah ﷺ said, they are your brothers, say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and eat. So we are not allowed to. For example, when we would serve food in the masjid, there would be brothers that would not eat food because, it's this imam is serving, non-zabiha, he is not verifying and stuff like that. To force your opinion onto others is actually the biggest bid'ah. Period. You can follow whatever you want to follow, but if you're coming to the masjid, Allah has not given you a right to ask the masjid administration what type of food, because that is now you're putting a tuhma, or you're saying, I don't trust you as a Muslim. Ta'amul Muslim, the food of a Muslim, is halal food. Even if he serves you haram, it will not affect you. right? He'll get the sin for it to serve you halal, right? Like I know that, for example, I was in somebody's house. I had eaten food in their house multiple times. And then afterwards we were in some discussion and he's like, I buy my I buy my meat from Costco. So now I know. I don't need to insult him and say, brother, I can't come to your home unless you buy your meat from, this butcher or that butcher, because I know you buy your meat is haram. Because he still follows a madhab. He follows a madhab that allows him to buy that. Okay? So we should not create such stringent views around this that, divide the community over that. Now, what happens to the meat that is found in Costco? What happens to the meat that is found in mainstream places? The meats of Jewish people is halal for us. It is actually the most halal. It is as equal to halal. Like one of the brothers saw me buying turkey from Costco. There's that Plainville turkey. That's the kosher turkey. So, remember that? They were like, Shaykh, Imam, this is halal? I'm like, yes, this is kosher. No, kosher is different, right? No, Habibi. Kosher is halal. Halal is kosher, kosher is halal. They're halal for us, right? So as long as you know that the meat is kosher, you can buy it and eat from it without any haraj. That means you can go to your local Publix and buy kosher hot dogs. They're there. They're kosher. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Now, the rest of the meat, this ease that people have taken now, which they say, I'll go buy meat from Costco, I'll just say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar on it. That opinion is literally from the mainstream scholars, even the scholars that sometimes people attribute this to, such as Shaykh Uthaymeen, Shaykh Fawzan, Shaykh bin Baz, they themselves never allow anybody to eat meat except Allah's name is mentioned on them. The ones that are easiest on that are the Shafi'is, like you and me. Right? You're Shafi'i, right? Astaghfirullah, you're confused. May Allah help you. He has become a Shanafi, a Shafi'i Hanafi. He's become a Shanafi. He's got too many Hanafi friends, so he's become a Shanafi now. So anyhow, the Shafi'is are the only ones that actually allow without Bismillah. But they also legislate, you must know that this is coming from a Christian. You must know that this is a Christian. Like the institution, the place that is selling, that owner has to be Christian. So buying food from Costco, these places, literally I searched through all the fatwas. It's just the fatwa of ease. There's one or two fringe fatwas, that are out there that allow you to eat Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. They say, you know what, just say Bismillah on the food and it becomes halal. Other than that, mainstream majority scholars do not allow you. Now, for example, my friend, he's a chaplain, Ben, right? He's 76 years old, so just so you know, he's not my friend. Like we work at the same place as a chaplain. So if he goes hunting, I told him, if you go hunting, right, and you get some meat, bring it for me. Because he's a practicing Christian. I'll eat meat from him. Right? But if he goes to Costco and buys meat from me, I know that it's a Costco meat, that meat is not, it doesn't all of a sudden now become halal because he bought it from Costco. Right? It has to be something he hunted or he slaughtered. Right? That meat is halal. Okay? So may Allah make it easy for us. But again, so azka ta'am, all of that, when the scholars, they say halal, this is the entire discussion that is intended by that one word, that is halal. Now similarly on each one of these, halal trader, halal quality, those discussions can be had, but we're not going to go into that discussion for today's sake, inshallah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلْيَنْظُرْ, so let, قَالُوا رَبُّكُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا لَبِثْتُمْ, Allah knows how long you stayed in the cave. فَبَعْثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرِقِكُمْ هَذِهِ, so one of you shall send أحدكم, one of you, بورقكم, with this money of yours, هذه إلى المدينة, to the city. فلينظر أيها أزكى طعاما, go and look for the most purest food that you can find. فليأتكم برزق منه, let you bring some food from there. وليتلطف, and be very, very, very cautious. Show exceptional caution. وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا, and let not anybody have a whiff of your presence. If they get to know that you are here, end the story. Because they're they're going to arrest you. The next ayah it says, إِنَّهُمْ إِن يَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ, if they capture you and they find out about you, يَرْجُمُوكُمْ, they will stone you to death. أَوْ يُعِيدُكُمْ, or they will يُعِيدُكُمْ, and they will return you فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ, in their ways of ibadah and worship. They will take you back in the older ways. وَلَن تُفْلِحُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا, and in that case, you will never be able to be successful then. You will never succeed. Not in this dunya. In akhirah, you will not succeed. We'll stop over here, inshallah. We'll start from verse number 21 next week, inshallah. If anybody has any questions about what we covered or anything related to that, feel free in the next 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah, within them. They haven't left yet. This all is in the cave. They're awake and they're having this conversation amongst them. The next ayah is like, وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْفَرْنَا, I think that's the next ayah. وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْفَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ. Right? The next ayah is where we talk about that. So this entire discussion is just amongst them. Yeah, and I try. Bismillah. Ask all the questions. These youngsters? Yeah.
So, what exactly is the background? Why they came to the cave, and then now when they go?
Were you here the first day?
Yeah, I'm just trying to Google it.
Okay, so the background was they ran away, right? The king was going to kill them. The Qiyanus, he was going to arrest them and kill them because they were not.
So many years, if they come back, they will not.
They don't know that.
They don't know that.
They think that the other king is still there. In their mind, they're like, oh, we only lived in the cave for 1 day or a part of a day. So they still believe that the same king who they ran away from is still there, but now they're feeling hungry. And the greatest mu'jiza over here is, and this is a really interesting point, that in whose hospitality were they for 300 years? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No food, no drink, no bathroom, nothing. Right? Similar to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he used to do the siyamul wisal, when he used to do the continuous fast, right? Some of the Sahabas wanted to do it. So he forbade them. He said, don't do continuous fast. It's like, why, Ya Rasul, you do it? We want to do it too. Right? So he said, abitu inda rabbi. Right? Literally, abitu inda rabbi, like abitu ind fulan, like I'm gonna hang out with him tonight. The Arabs, they say, Wallah, I say, abitu inda Ahmad al-layla. I'm gonna chill with him tonight. I'm gonna be in the presence of this person. I'll hang out with him tonight. Abitu inda rabbi, like I have my moments with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yut'imuni wa yasqini. And I get special food from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He feeds me and He gives me water. So I can do that. Right? And that's the diyafa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why some of the ulama attached to that, they say that when we will be in the eternal hospitality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Jannah, there will be no bathroom. We will not have any need to go to the bathroom. We will not have any need to go to the bathroom. And that is why some of the Jews, when they heard about that, he was a very famous tabi'i, I'm just missing his name. Anyhow, it'll come to me. Very famous now. Very, very famous tabi'i. He was a qadi too. So there were Jews that were living in his town. So they heard about this, the Jews. They said, ماذا يقول المسلمون? What's nonsense that you're saying? Like, you're going to go to Jannah and you're not going to have to go to the bathroom or not. What kind of nonsense is this? They didn't believe in that. So this qadi, he said to the Yahudi, he said, لما تأكل أنت, when do you eat the food, does the entire food come out or some of it? He said, Ba'du, some goes to my body. And he said, if in this dunya some can go to your body and other can come out, then why in the akhirah not the entire thing can go to your body and nothing comes out? Right? So these are matters of mantiq, like when we understand and have belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these things. So anyhow, coming back, this was their state. They were a mu'jiza. So when they woke up after 300 years, they came back to the hospitality of this world. And the first thing this world does to you when you're born as a baby is you cry for hunger. While you were in your mother's belly, you were not hungry. You didn't need food and water. Right? Because you were again in the hospitality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the minute you come into the hospitality of this world, then the necessity of this world is food and hunger. You're going to need that. Yes?
That would be different for Sayyidina Maryam, because you know how he asked, that's different.
That is not just only for Sayyidina Maryam, for example. Right? Many of the Sahabas had similar mu'jizat. Khubayb radiallahu anhu, when he was being killed, right before when he was captured in Mecca, when Khubayb was captured in Mecca, the house in which he was imprisoned, the chief's house, the chief says that I would see Khubayb and he would be eating fruits. كان يأكل عنبا وفواكه والمكة لا فاكهة لهم. And the people of Makkah had no fruits. So this is even the Sahaba, these are mu'jizat, right? My Shaykh wrote actually a book on this, which is the mu'jiza of not having to need food in this world. And he documented in the 40 pages that he wrote, or 50 pages, authentic narrations of people of the past where they built such a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they never needed food in this dunya. And we have many narrations from the Sahaba, and anyhow. Good question, but it opened a tangent. It's okay. Any other questions? Otherwise we'll end, inshallah. Good? اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وبارك اللهم على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. O Allah, we ask you with your blessed names. O Allah, we ask you with all your infinite names, the ones that you have taught us and the ones you have kept secret from us. O Allah, give us the ability to truly connect with the Quran. O Allah, we ask you to truly understand the Quran. O Allah, we ask you to open our hearts to be able to understand the intricacies of your kalam. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow this Quran to illuminate our hearts and allow the illumination to illuminate our paths in our lives. Allow us to make decisions with the nur and the light of this Quran. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this blessed month to fill our hearts with the love of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask you, Allah, to grant us the ma'rifah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we ask you, Allah, to give us a ru'ya of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam before we meet you, Ya Allah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that our brothers and sisters in Gaza are suffering. Allow them with your mercy to ease their suffering. We'll ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that all the plots of the enemies and what is taking place in Lebanon and Sudan and all other parts of the world, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eases the pains of our brothers and sisters in all parts of the world. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you truly understand what is in our hearts and you understand the pains that we're going through. Oh Allah, we ask you to alleviate and eliminate all the pains that we have and fill our hearts with the joy of Iman and the light and nur of Hidayah and the love of this Quran and the love of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم.